My 7-year-old son, Wyatt, stood in the middle of the police station, his small voice cutting through the chaos. "Officer Johnson, should I tell you?" Where Uncle Mike really took my little sister. The room went dead silent, and my brother Mike's face drained of all color. 20 minutes earlier, this same police station had been pure chaos. Officers rushing back and forth, phones ringing nonstop, my mother sobbing dramatically in the corner while pointing an accusing finger at me. "This is your fault, Bethany. You never watch those kids properly." Her voice had been shrill, performative, making sure everyone in that station knew she thought I was a terrible mother. But now, with Wyatt's words hanging in the air, you could hear the fluorescent lights humming overhead. Officer Johnson, who'd been typing furiously at his computer, froze with his fingers suspended above the keyboard. The desk sergeant stopped mid-sentence on his phone call. Even the drunk guy they'd brought in for disorderly conduct seemed to sober up instantly. My brother Mike had been pacing near the water fountain, playing the role of concerned uncle perfectly. "We'll find her, Bethany. Kids wander off all the time. Darcy probably just got distracted by something shiny." He'd been saying variations of this for the past 2 hours, his voice steady, reassuring, almost convincing. But when Wyatt spoke, Mike's whole performance crumbled. His hand knocked over a paper cup, sending water spreading across the floor, but nobody moved to clean it up. "What did you say, son?" Officer Johnson's voice was careful, controlled, like he was afraid of spooking a wild animal. Wyatt didn't flinch. He stood there in his dinosaur t-shirt and light-up sneakers, holding his favorite book about prehistoric creatures, looking far older than his 7 years. Uncle Mike told Darcy they were going on a special adventure. He said I couldn't come because I would ruin the surprise. He gave me $5 to keep reading my book and not follow them. My mother gasped. "Wyatt, sweetheart, you're confused. Uncle Mike would never—" "Grandma Ruth, you need to be quiet now," Wyatt said firmly, and something in his tone made my mother's mouth snap shut. "I have more to tell Officer Johnson." Mike took a step forward. "Hey, buddy, you're upset about your sister. Sometimes when we're scared, we get confused about what we saw." "I'm not confused, Uncle Mike." Wyatt turned those serious brown eyes on his uncle. "You told me I was too smart. You said exactly that. You're too smart, Wyatt. Smart kids ask too many questions. Then you gave me the money and walked away with Darcy. She was wearing her purple butterfly dress, the one Mom just bought her for picture day." The detail sent a chill through me. Wyatt never forgot anything. His teachers called it exceptional recall. His pediatrician said it was borderline eidetic memory. But right now, it might be the thing that saved my daughter. Officer Johnson moved slowly, deliberately, pulling out a chair. "Wyatt, I need you to sit down and tell me everything you remember, every single detail." My legs felt like water. 3 hours ago, my 4-year-old daughter, Darcy, had been laughing on the swings at Riverside Park, her blonde curls bouncing as she pumped her little legs, trying to go higher. "Mommy, watch me, I'm flying," she'd called out, and I'd looked up from helping Wyatt with a difficult word in his book just long enough to wave at her. Now she was gone, and my 7-year-old son was about to reveal something that would shatter our family forever. Mike's phone buzzed in his pocket. He reached for it instinctively, then seemed to think better of it. Officer Johnson noticed. "Mr. Lawson, I'm going to need you to hand over your phone." "This is ridiculous," Mike said, but his voice cracked. "I'm trying to help find my niece, and you're treating me like a criminal because a confused kid—" "Uncle Mike," Wyatt interrupted. "The lady you met last week drives a white SUV. She has blonde hair and cries a lot. She said 50,000 wasn't enough. She wanted 75,000. You told her you'd figure something out. You said Bethany was too tired and too poor to fight back." The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's face had gone from red to white to gray in a matter of seconds. Mike's mouth opened and closed like a fish, gasping for air. Officer Johnson was already on his radio, his voice urgent but controlled, calling for backup, asking for all units to be on the lookout for a white SUV. I stared at my son, this brave little boy who'd been carrying this terrible secret, waiting for the right moment to reveal it. He looked back at me with those wise eyes and said simply, "I knew you'd need to know the truth, Mom." I was just waiting until everyone would listen. The police station erupted into controlled chaos, but this time with purpose, with direction. They had leads now, real information. Mike was being read his rights while my mother screamed that this was all a misunderstanding, but I only had eyes for Wyatt, my quiet, brilliant son who might have just saved his sister's life with his patience and his perfect memory. "There's more, Mom," Wyatt said quietly, "just for me. Lots more." But I wanted to make sure Officer Johnson heard the important parts first. He held up his dinosaur book. Chapter 7 is about protection. It says the smallest dinosaurs sometimes protected the herd by being observers, by watching for danger. That's what I did. I observed. I'm Bethany Lawson, and until 3 hours ago, I thought I knew exactly who I could trust. It was supposed to be a perfect Saturday afternoon at Riverside Park. The spring air was warm, carrying the scent of fresh-cut grass and blooming cherry trees. Darcy was giggling on the swings, while Wyatt read his dinosaur book on the bench beside me. The sounds of children playing mixed with dogs barking and parents chatting, creating that comfortable chaos that meant safety in numbers. My brother Mike had just moved back from Denver 2 weeks ago after losing his job at some tech startup. Mom insisted we include him in our family outings to help him adjust. She'd called me 3 times that morning alone. "Bethany, family supports family. Mike needs us right now. Don't you dare leave him out." So I'd invited him, pushing down the uneasy feeling I'd had since he'd shown up at Mom's house with just 2 suitcases and a story about downsizing that didn't quite add up. Mike seemed different since his return. He was jumpier, constantly checking his phone even during conversations. His laugh came too quick and lasted too long. When I'd asked about his plans, he'd been vague. "Just exploring options, sis." You know how it is. But I didn't know how it was. I'd been working double shifts at the hospital for 3 years straight, raising 2 kids alone after their father decided family life wasn't for him. I knew exactly what my options were: work, survive, repeat. The park was our Saturday tradition. Wyatt would bring whatever book he was devouring that week, and Darcy would run wild on the playground until she exhausted herself. It was the one time all week when I could sit still for more than 5 minutes, when the weight of single motherhood lifted just enough for me to breathe. "Auntie Bethany works too hard," Mike had said when he arrived, using that old childhood nickname that immediately set my teeth on edge. He hadn't called me that in years. "Let Uncle Mike help out. I miss my niece and nephew." Darcy had run to him immediately, throwing her arms around his legs. "Uncle Mike, push me on the swings." She adored him the way only 4-year-olds could, with complete and unconditional trust. He was the fun uncle who'd sent her stuffed animals from Denver, who'd video called on her birthday and made silly faces until she laughed so hard she got hiccups. Wyatt had been more reserved, offering a polite, "Hi, Uncle Mike," before returning to his book. Mike had ruffled his hair, and I'd caught the slight flinch, the way Wyatt pulled away just a fraction. My son noticed everything, processed it all through that remarkable mind of his. I should have paid attention to his instincts. The park was packed with the usual Saturday crowd. The Martinez family was having a birthday party by the pavilion, complete with a piñata and coolers full of juice boxes. Mrs. Chen was power walking the loop with her group of retired teachers. Tom Bradley was teaching his twins to ride bikes on the flat path near the duck pond. It was community. It was normal. It was safe. Mike had been charming at first, pushing Darcy on the swings while making airplane noises, helping her climb the rope ladder when she got scared halfway up. He'd even bought ice cream for both kids from the truck that made its rounds every hour. Vanilla for Darcy, chocolate for Wyatt. He remembered their favorites. "You look exhausted, Bethany," he'd said when he returned with the ice cream. It wasn't unkind, just observational. "When's the last time you did something for yourself?" "Tuesday," I'd replied automatically. "I took a 15-minute lunch break all to myself." He'd laughed, but there was something else in his eyes. Pity? Calculation? I was too tired to analyze it. "Just for 5 minutes," he'd said with that easy smile that always convinced Mom he could do no wrong. "Let me push Darcy on the swings while you help Wyatt with his book. You deserve a break, sis. You work too hard." I should have noticed how he kept looking toward the parking lot. Should have questioned why he'd parked his beat-up Honda so far from our spot when there were at least 10 closer spaces available. Should have wondered why he was wearing his good jacket on such a warm day, the one with all the pockets. But I was tired from working a 12-hour shift the night before, and 5 minutes of peace sounded like heaven. Wyatt had been struggling with a word in his book about the Cretaceous period. Pachycephalosaurus, he'd said slowly, his finger under each syllable. Mom, why did they have such thick skulls? It was such a simple moment. Me helping my son read, the sun warm on our backs, Darcy's laughter floating over from the swings, the last normal moment before everything shattered. 7 minutes. That's how long it took for my world to shatter. When I looked up from Wyatt's book, the swing was empty, chains still moving slightly in the breeze. The metal seat swayed back and forth like a pendulum, counting off the seconds of my failure as a mother. Mike was gone. Darcy was gone. My first thought was the ice cream truck. Maybe he'd taken her for another treat. I walked quickly, not running yet, still clinging to rational explanations. The vendor, a teenager with acne and bored eyes, shook his head. Haven't seen anyone matching that description in the last 20 minutes, ma'am. The playground came next. I checked behind the spiral slide, inside the tunnel, under the climbing structure. Darcy! Darcy, honey, where are you? My voice was getting higher, tighter. Other parents started looking up from their phones, that universal parental radar picking up distress signals. What does she look like? A woman with twin boys asked, already standing, ready to help. 4 years old, blonde curls, purple butterfly dress, about this tall. I gestured frantically. She was with my brother, Mike. Tall, brown hair, wearing a navy jacket. Within minutes, a small army of parents was searching. The bathroom building, the duck pond, the nature trail, the parking lot. Each empty location sent my heart rate climbing higher. Someone called 911. A jogger ran the entire park perimeter. The birthday party at the pavilion stopped, and the Martinez family joined the search. When Officer Johnson arrived 15 minutes later, his first words still burn in my memory. Ma'am, how long were you not watching your daughter? The accusation in his tone was clear, sharp as broken glass. I was helping my son read. My brother was watching her. Maybe 7 minutes, maybe 10 at most. And where is your brother now? I don't know. That's the problem. He took her somewhere and hasn't come back. Officer Johnson, a man with gray at his temples and the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too much, pulled out his notepad. Has your brother ever taken your daughter without permission before? No, never. He just moved back to town. He loves Darcy. Mrs. Peterson from 2 houses down had arrived somehow, drawn by the drama like a moth to flame. She said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Some mothers just can't handle the responsibility alone. 2 kids working all the time, no father in the picture. It's too much for one person." The words hit like physical blows. Another neighbor, Janet Clark, nodded sympathetically but added, "I've seen her leaving those kids with anyone who'll watch them. The grandmother, babysitters, now the uncle." "I have to work," I said, hating how defensive I sounded. "I'm a nurse. I work to support my children." Then Mom arrived in a whirlwind of dramatics and accusations. She screeched her car to a stop, leaving the door open as she ran toward us. "What did you do, Bethany? Where's my grandbaby?" "Mom, Mike took her somewhere and hasn't come back." Instead of comforting me, she turned on me completely. "This is what happens when you don't trust family, Bethany. Mike probably just took her for a walk because you made him feel unwelcome. You've always been jealous of him, always trying to make him look bad. Mom, he's been gone for 45 minutes now. His car is gone." "So?" "Maybe he took her for McDonald's. You never let those kids have any fun. Mike would never hurt Darcy. He adores that little girl. You're the one who lost track of her." Officer Johnson interrupted the family drama with more questions. "Has your brother been acting unusual lately? Any financial problems? Any substance abuse issues?" "He lost his job in Denver," I admitted, "but he said he had savings." Mom jumped in immediately. "Mike has plenty of money. He was making 6 figures at that tech company. He's just taking a break, reevaluating his life. Something his sister could never understand since she's never been successful at anything except driving men away." The cruelty of it left me speechless. Officer Johnson continued his questions, each one feeling like an interrogation of my parenting, rather than a search for my daughter. Was your daughter properly supervised? Do you often leave her with relatives? Has she ever wandered off before? Any custody disputes with the father? Her father hasn't been in the picture for 3 years, and she's never wandered off. She was taken by my brother, who was supposed to be watching her. But Wyatt hadn't said a word through all of this. He just sat there on the bench, still, clutching his dinosaur book, watching everything with those serious brown eyes. When Officer Johnson asked him if he'd seen anything, Wyatt just shook his head. I thought he was in shock, traumatized by his sister's disappearance and the chaos around him. The first hour passed in a blur of repeated questions and expanding search circles. Mike's phone went straight to voicemail. His apartment was empty when officers checked. The Amber Alert was issued, but with no vehicle description and only vague details, it felt pointless. Every minute that passed was another minute Darcy was gone. Another minute the statistics turned against us. 2 hours in, Officer Johnson pulled me aside to a quieter corner of the station. His expression had shifted from procedural efficiency to genuine concern. Mrs. Lawson, we need to consider that your brother might have taken her intentionally. Does he have any financial problems we should know about? Any debts, gambling issues, drug problems? I don't know, I admitted, the words scraping my throat raw. He's been secretive since he came back. Won't talk about why he really lost his job, keeps taking phone calls outside, always checking his phone like he's waiting for something. We'll need access to his financial records, phone records, anything that might help us understand his motivations. Mom exploded from across the room where she'd been eavesdropping. How dare you? Mike is a good man. He's always been a good man. If anyone's to blame, it's Bethany for not watching her properly. She stormed over, her face twisted with rage and tears. You've always tried to make him look bad. Even now, with your daughter missing, you're probably hoping it's his fault so you don't have to take responsibility for being a negligent mother. Mom, please, I begged, but she was building momentum. Do you know how hard it's been for Mike? Losing his job, his relationship falling apart, having to move back home? And instead of supporting him, you've been cold and suspicious. No wonder he wanted to take Darcy somewhere fun, away from your negativity. Officer Johnson raised his hand to quiet her, but Mom kept going. My son would never hurt that baby. Never. If you want to investigate someone, investigate her. Check how many times she's left those kids with strangers. Check her work schedule. 16-hour shifts sometimes. What kind of mother works 16-hour shifts? The kind who has to pay rent and buy food, I shot back, my control finally snapping. The kind who doesn't have anyone else to rely on. That's when something shifted in Wyatt. He stood up from his chair with deliberate purpose, walked straight to Officer Johnson, and tugged on his sleeve. The whole station seemed to pause, watching this small boy with his dinosaur book tucked under his arm, moving with the determination of someone much older. Officer Johnson, Wyatt said clearly, his voice carrying across the room, I need to tell you something about Uncle Mike. But Grandma Ruth can't be here when I do. Mom's face went purple. Wyatt, sweetheart, you're confused. This is grown-up business. No, Grandma, I'm not confused. I have information about where Uncle Mike took Darcy, but you won't let me tell it if you're here because you always say Uncle Mike is perfect and everyone else is wrong. Officer Johnson knelt down to Wyatt's level, his entire demeanor changing. What do you need to tell me, son? Wyatt looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Resolve, protection, a fierce intelligence that had been watching, waiting, choosing its moment. I nodded at him, and he turned back to the officer. Uncle Mike told Darcy they were going on a special adventure. He said I couldn't come because I'm too smart and would ruin the surprise. He gave me $5 to keep reading my book and not follow them. The $5 bill was still in Wyatt's pocket. He pulled it out, crumpled and damp from his sweaty palm, and placed it on Officer Johnson's desk like evidence at a trial. When did he give this to you? Officer Johnson asked, his voice gentle but urgent. Right before he walked away with Darcy. He said, Be a good boy, Wyatt. Smart boys know when to mind their own business. Then he took Darcy's hand and said they were going to meet some very nice people who wanted to see how pretty she was. My legs nearly gave out. Officer Johnson caught my arm, guided me to a chair. Wyatt, did Uncle Mike say anything about these people? Not then. But last week he did. Mom tried to interrupt again. This is ridiculous, a child's imagination running wild during a traumatic event. Officer Johnson's voice turned steel. Ma'am, I need you to step outside. Now Officer Martinez will take your statement in another room. You can't make me leave. That's my grandson. I can and I will if you interfere with this investigation. Your granddaughter is missing, and your grandson has crucial information. Choose what matters more, your son's reputation or your granddaughter's safety. Mom looked like she'd been slapped. She opened her mouth, closed it, then allowed Officer Martinez to lead her away, shooting me a look of pure venom as she left. Wyatt waited until the door closed behind her. Then he looked up at Officer Johnson with those old soul eyes and said, Last week, a lady with blonde hair came to our house. She was crying. She and Uncle Mike were talking about adoption papers and money, lots of money, and Uncle Mike told her he had a plan to get her what she wanted. The room went completely still. Officer Johnson reached for his radio while simultaneously gesturing for another officer to start recording. Wyatt, I need you to tell me everything you remember about that conversation. Every single word. There's more, Wyatt continued, his voice steady despite the tears starting to form in his eyes. Last week, when Uncle Mike was babysitting, a lady came to our house. She had blonde hair that looked like she'd been crying for days. Her makeup was all smeared. She kept saying, You promised me, Mike. You promised this would work. Uncle Mike gave her an envelope and told her to be patient, that he had a plan. Officer Johnson's expression changed completely, his whole body tensing like a hunter who'd just spotted prey. Wyatt, did you hear anything else? The lady said something about adoption papers and money. She said $50,000 wasn't enough anymore, that she wanted $75,000 because her husband was getting suspicious about where the first payment went. Uncle Mike got really mad and said he'd figure something out, that she needed to trust him. Every word from my son's mouth was another dagger in my chest. Officer Johnson was already typing rapidly on his computer, pulling up databases I couldn't see. Can you describe this woman in more detail? She was shorter than Mom, maybe 30 years old. She wore a big diamond ring and kept twisting it while she talked. Her car was a white SUV with a baby on board sticker, but I looked inside when she left and there was no car seat. I thought that was weird. You saw her car? From my bedroom window. Uncle Mike didn't know I was home. Mom had picked me up early from school because I finished all my testing, but Uncle Mike thought I was still there. I heard voices and looked outside. Officer Johnson grabbed his radio. All units be on the lookout for a white SUV with a baby on board sticker. Possible child trafficking situation. Suspect is a white female, approximately 30 years old, blonde hair, traveling with a male suspect, Mike Lawson. The station erupted into controlled chaos. Phones rang, officers ran to their vehicles, computers clicked rapidly, but Wyatt wasn't finished. Uncle Mike took pictures of Darcy last week. Lots of them. He said they were for Grandma, but he made her wear 3 different outfits and told her to smile pretty for the nice people who would love her very much. He also asked me if Darcy had any allergies or medical problems. I thought he was just being a good uncle, but now I think he was making like a catalog page. A catalog page? Officer Johnson's face had gone pale. Like when Mom shops online for clothes. Different pictures, different angles, information about the product. That's what it felt like. He even measured her height against the wall and wrote it down. I was going to be sick. My baby, my beautiful little girl, had been photographed and measured like merchandise. Officer Johnson called another officer over. Get the cybercrime unit on this immediately. Check all the adoption forums, especially the illegal ones. Look for recent posts about a 4-year-old blonde girl. Then Wyatt delivered the final piece. Uncle Mike called the lady Verna, and she called her husband Grant. She said, Grant thinks we're adopting from foster care, but the waiting list is 3 years long and I can't wait anymore. Uncle Mike said, Verna, trust me, my sister is too overwhelmed to fight this. She can barely pay rent. By the time she realizes what happened, you'll be in another state with legal-looking papers. Officer Johnson was on his feet now, barking orders. Run the names Verna and Grant with that vehicle description. Check all recent adoption attorney consultations, fertility clinics, anyone who's been flagged for suspicious adoption inquiries. Within 15 minutes, they had a match. Verna and Grant Henderson from Riverside Heights, just 40 miles away. She'd been flagged 6 months ago for trying to pay a pregnant teenager for her baby. They'd been desperate to adopt for 5 years, going deeper into debt with each failed attempt. "We've got them," an officer shouted from across the room. Traffic camera caught the white SUV heading north on Interstate 85. They passed through a toll booth 20 minutes ago. Officer Johnson coordinated with state police, setting up roadblocks ahead of the vehicle. The entire operation moved with the precision of a military strike. 35 minutes later, his phone rang. He listened, his face cycling through relief, anger, and exhaustion. "They found them," he announced. "Rest stop near Millerville. Your daughter is safe unharmed. Your brother and the Hendersons are in custody." I collapsed, sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe. Wyatt wrapped his small arms around me, his own tears finally falling. "I saved her, Mom. I waited for the right time, and I saved her." Officer Johnson looked at my son with something approaching awe. "You did, young man. You absolutely did." The call came through on speaker. A state trooper's voice filled the room. "The child is asking for her mommy. She seems confused but physically fine. The suspects had a forged custody agreement and adoption papers. They claim they thought it was legal, that Mr. Lawson was the father arranging a private adoption." Mike had thought of everything except one detail. He'd underestimated a 7-year-old boy with a perfect memory and the patience to wait for the right moment to use it. Mike was arrested on charges of attempted child trafficking, kidnapping, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The couple, the Hendersons, claimed they thought it was a legal private adoption, that Mike had told them I'd agreed but was too emotional to handle the paperwork myself. They'd already given him $30,000 as a donation for the birth mother's expenses. The money order receipts were in Mike's apartment, hidden in a shoebox with fake adoption documents he'd created using templates from the dark web. Mom hasn't spoken to me in 3 weeks. She still insists there must be some explanation, that Mike was probably trying to help somehow. She posts on Facebook about false accusations and family betrayal, never mentioning what actually happened. Her posts get dozens of sympathetic comments from people who don't know the truth. "Praying for your family," they write. "The truth will come out." The truth did come out from the mouth of a 7-year-old boy she refuses to acknowledge as a hero. The neighbors who judged me that day now avoid eye contact when I pass them on the street. Mrs. Peterson, who was so quick to call me an overwhelmed single mother, actually crossed to the other side of the grocery store yesterday to avoid me. Janet Clark sent a card saying she was sorry for what happened, but she never apologized for suggesting I was negligent. The park feels different now, tainted with the memory of almost losing everything. But Wyatt taught me something invaluable that night as I tucked him in. "Mom," he said, looking up at me with those wise brown eyes, "I knew Uncle Mike was lying because you always tell us that family means protecting each other. He wasn't protecting Darcy. He was selling her. That's not what family does." "Why didn't you tell me right away about the woman who came to the house?" I asked, still trying to understand. "Because Uncle Mike gave me $10 to forget, and I wanted him to think I did. If I told you then, he would have known I was watching him. So I kept watching. I wrote everything down in my dinosaur book, in the margins where nobody would look. See?" He showed me the tiny notes in pencil, dates and times and snippets of overheard conversations. My 7-year-old son had been building a case like a detective. Darcy doesn't remember much, thankfully. She talks about the car adventure with Uncle Mike sometimes, and how the lady gave her candy and kept calling her sweetie and our little angel. She doesn't understand why Uncle Mike doesn't visit anymore, or why Grandma Ruth cries when she sees us at the grocery store. I've told her Uncle Mike had to go away because he made bad choices, and that's all she needs to know at 4 years old. The investigation revealed Mike had debts exceeding $80,000 from online gambling. He'd been planning this for months, researching private adoption loopholes, creating a false narrative about me being an unfit mother. He'd even taken videos of our messy house on the days I worked doubles, building a case that I'd voluntarily give up Darcy. The Hendersons had found him through an underground forum where desperate couples connected with people willing to facilitate adoptions outside the legal system. Last week, Wyatt asked me if he did the right thing by waiting to tell the truth. "I wanted to make sure everyone was listening," he said. "Sometimes grown-ups don't believe kids unless they say it at the right time." If I'd told you about the lady while Grandma was defending Uncle Mike, she would have said I was making it up. I needed Officer Johnson to hear it when it mattered most. I held him tight and told him he was the bravest person I knew. He'd carried that terrible knowledge for a week, adding to it, documenting it, waiting for the moment when his words would have maximum impact. Trust isn't about blood. It's about actions. My 7-year-old son understood that better than any of the adults in that police station. He saved his sister not with strength or authority, but with patience, observation, and the courage to speak truth when it mattered most. Sometimes the smallest voice in the room carries the most power. You just have to be willing to listen. The case goes to trial next month. Mike faces 15 years. The Hendersons face 5 to 10. Mom still won't return my calls, choosing to believe in the son who betrayed her rather than the grandson who saved her granddaughter. But every night when I check on my sleeping children, I know that Wyatt's courage saved our family. Not the extended family we lost, but the real family. The 3 of us who choose to protect each other, no matter what. Some bonds are stronger than blood. They're forged in moments of truth, when a 7-year-old boy stands up in a police station and says the words that change everything. Wyatt didn't just save his sister that day. He taught me that heroes come in all sizes, and sometimes they're sitting right beside you, reading a book about dinosaurs, waiting for their moment to roar. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and share it with others who need to hear it. Your support helps these important stories reach more people. Comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful, true stories that remind us of the strength found in unexpected places. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the quietest observers are the strongest protectors.